If your revenue keeps bouncing between 20 and 40K, your business isn't growing or actually scaling. It's reacting to currently what is happening inside of your company on the fundamental level. And that usually means something on that fundamental level is actually missing inside of your company to unlock growth. And no, it's not more leads, it's not better ads, it's not more sales, it's usually structure and systems. Most founders at this stage believe that the next level comes from actually pushing harder. Let's do more marketing, more outreach, and more sales and more ads. But the truth at this stage is that your business exposes much deeper problems than just sales and leads and marketing. Because when a business starts approaching 40K, it starts to behave differently. Complexity increases, delivery pressure increases, decision-making increases. And if the business isn't structured correctly, growth doesn't create momentum. It starts to create actually revenue swings. I recently spoke to one of our clients that we used to work. He used to have a service business doing around 33K a month. From the outside, things look really okay, clients were happy coming in, they were closing, revenue looked healthy. But when we looked a little bit closer at the actual numbers month to month, the pattern becomes really obvious. You see, he was doing 31K, 36, 24, 37, and then 28K, and even one time 15K. It wasn't growth, it was oscillation. Every time sales increased, delivery got actually stretched. When delivery got stretched, sales also slowed down. And the business kept bouncing between the same numbers. The founder believed that the solution was increasing more leads. But the real issue was something much more common than just increasing leads, sales, or marketing. The business had a demand. What it didn't have was the structure required to support the next actual stage. And this is exactly where most businesses get actually stuck, between roughly about 25K and 50K months. Because this stage is where the business stops behaving like a small operation and starts behaving like an actual company. Which means a new system has to exist in order for you to unlock the next level growth. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what those systems are and what actually needs to exist before pushing towards 60K a month. So let's get to it. So stick till the end of this video, because by end of this video, you will learn and understand, number one, why pushing revenue too early creates operational stress. Number two, the real difference between 30K business and a 60K business. Number three, the three structural layers that must exist before actually scaling. Number four, the numbers every founder must understand before hiring or adding more clients. And this is really important because for a very long time, I was battling not really paying attention to numbers, and that really cost me a lot of money, a lot of energy, and a lot of actual stress. Number five, the systems that turn growth from chaos into actual stability. We're going to be covering that as well. I'm going to show you all the frameworks and systems that actually need to be installed inside of your business so you can get past the 40, past the 50, past the 60, and scale towards 100K a month. And number six, how founders transition from operator to actual architect and why it's really important if you want to actually scale your business long term and also stabilize your business. With that being said, let's begin. So why 60K is structural milestone? Many founders think scaling is just about selling more services, right? The more services we sell, the more revenue we will generate, and the more profit we will have, and then we can start scaling. But every level of growth increases the load on your actual system. And that's where the question really comes in of like, how well have you designed your actual systems? Can your systems handle 2x growth? Can your system handle 3x growth? Can your system handle 4x growth? Can your system handle 10x growth, right? For example, let's say at 20K per month, you might have 3 to 4 clients. So at 20K per month, having 3 to 4 clients seems like no big deal. At 60K per month, you might have 10 to 15 clients, right? Which is like also not a big deal, but that is not a small change, right? You maybe say, hey, 3 to 4 clients, 10 to 15 clients, not a big change, like not a big difference, but it actually multiplies, right? The communication multiplies, delivery tasks multiply, team coordination multiply, quality control multiplies, operational complexity also multiplies. Without systems, the founder becomes the central control point of every single thing. And that's what's going to be stopping a lot of businesses from growth, because the founder is at the center and he's like the 911 speed dial, right? So that means every time there's a problem, founder steps in. Every time there's a question needs to be answered, founder steps in. Every time something needs to be reviewed, founder steps in. Every time somebody needs to be sold to, founder steps in. Follow-ups, founder steps in. And everything is around the founder. And this is called the 911 operation, where the founder is like the only guy that's reacting to absolutely everything that's happening inside the business. And that's when growth stops feeling exciting and starts feeling really overwhelming and too stressed. So what founders feel before 60K? Most founders approaching 60K feel like a mix of emotions. It's like a mixed bag, right? One, you could feel excitement. You know the business works, clients are paying, revenue is growing. Number two, you could feel pressure, right? More clients means more expectations, more deadlines. Mistakes become more expensive as well. Number three, operational stress, right? Tasks start to pile up. Client questions, internal decisions, delivery reviews, hiring considerations. Then your team starts to ask you more questions, right? You begin to realize that the business is not just a sales anymore type of game. It becomes more as an actual operation. It becomes more of systems, more thinking, more leverage. How do you get the advantage in the marketplace, right? It becomes more of like long-term thinking than just, hey, let's get sales, let's get short-term wins, okay? So the three things that must exist before 60K. Before pushing towards 60K months, three structural systems must exist, and they are like must exist if you want to scale and if you want to sustain your business, right? Without them, growth will always start creating chaos inside of your business. System one, consistent demand engine. Really important. Many businesses at 20 to 30K rely heavily on referrals, more word of mouth, occasional outreach. And that works early because it's more like kind of effort driven. It's kind of more like, you know what, we're going to take everything and like everything is kind of scattered around and we're just going to be picking up pieces and trying to put a puzzle together, right? And that works early, but the referrals are unpredictable because you never know who's speaking about your business. You cannot measure the marketing or the advertising or how many minutes somebody spoke about your business. You can never measure what exactly was said about your business. You can never measure if it was correctly positioned, right? Because here's the thing. Let's say you helped somebody, right? And now you help them and that person, let's maybe have a meeting with somebody. And they tell the other person about your business because they know, hey, they are in need in such a business. But maybe that person that's being offered your business, maybe he has potential 50 clients that he could give you as well, okay? But the person, the way they represented your business, the way they explained, the way they market your business, only was marketed around specifically himself. And so now that person stepped in. But let's say, for example, if that person know exactly what you're capable of doing, how many clients you can help, what are you looking for? What are your strengths, right? What can you help them with? And let's say that person that's being offered, he knows 50 people more that exactly are needing the service, but just because nothing was said of scale, never kind of reached those 50 people. I only reached that one person. So that's, again, I think you don't know how big of marketing is actually being done when it's being word of mouth or referrals. Like referrals are really great because they can be as a bonus, but you can't rely on referrals to be the main revenue stream inside of your business because you can never track who's speaking about your business. You never track who is ready to go forward with your business. You can never track these numbers. And that's when it really becomes dangerous. So, as I said, referrals are really unpredictable and it cannot be the main system you use to scale your business, right? You cannot scale a business on randomness because that's purely random because, you know, maybe today 5 people spoke about your business, tomorrow only 1 person spoke about your business, and then everybody kind of forgot your business and then somebody again spoke. These numbers are kind of fluctuating as they go, right? One day a couple people speak, one day nobody speaks, and that's random, okay? So a demand system example. A demand system answers one question. How many conversations are needed to hit a revenue target, right? So let's say we want to hit to the 60K. And let's say our average client value is 6K. How many clients do we need to close, right? 60 divided by 6K, we need 10 clients, okay? If the close rate is 25%, you need 40 sales conversations just to convert 10 clients. So you can then reach 60K. Now the demand becomes measurable, okay? Now we can really look at like how many conversations we need. We can measure the revenue we want to actually hit by end of the month. And then we also can start forecasting. The next question is, where can we get 40 sales conversations? What can we do to get 40 sales conversations? Now it really becomes measurable because now we are measuring by the input. and the output we get. So where can we put input and get the output of 40 sales conversations? Really important question. Some of you may say, hey, I want to scale ads, but then the next question is like, is your delivery ready, right? Some of you will say, hey, let's maybe start step by step. We want to get to 60K, but like, let's first get 5 and then see if we can scale. What you need to currently understand is where can we actually start controlling the demand. It's like a tap water, right? You may turn the tap on and the water starts coming out. You may switch it off and the water stops. So you exactly need the same system when you're talking about your demand. That could be ads, that could be cold outreach, that could be email, that could maybe be combination of both that give you, hey, this gives me 30 conversations, this gives me just 10 conversations. It could be half and half, 20 and 20. It could be 15 and 25, right? But at the end of the day, you need something that you can measure. If this is like, hey, we need to get, let's say, 40 sales conversations, we only get 10 from, let's say, cold outreach, but let's just leave the rest to the actual referrals, that's not going to work. Your referrals could be something as an actual bonus. You could say, hey, we are getting the 40 sales conversations, we are hitting the 60K month, but guess what? There's more referrals coming in. So now we can add that as an actual bonus instead of relying just on the actual referrals itself. So instead of hoping for clients appear, you design a system that produces opportunities consistently. And that's the game of scaling your business. You need to have a consistent, controlled system. And the most important word that I want to emphasize is control. Controllable system where you can control how many appointments you can actually get out. That automatically changes the game of your actual business, okay? So system 2 is structured delivery. Most service businesses grow with custom delivery. Every client gets kind of slightly different work, slightly different treatment, slightly different approach. That's only going to work at the start when you're kind of still trying to figure things out. But as you're scaling and you maybe get near the 20K, that's not going to start to work anymore to get you to 35 and 50 and 60 and 100. At that point, your service business needs to grow with standardization. What do I mean by standardization? It's like everything works the same for each client. And maybe some variables vary differently because maybe there's a couple conditions or circumstances that impact that delivery completely different. That's okay. But I'm saying like your majority, like I'm saying 88%, 89% have to be delivered exactly the same. You can have 40% being delivered the same, 60% being delivered differently. That's not going to work. And most of the time, somebody even has like 90% being delivered differently, 10% being delivered the same. That has to be standardized as well. You maybe have to work off templates. You maybe have to document it. You maybe have to get a team that knows exactly how to execute. Another thing is your onboarding. That also has to change for a couple of reasons. So if you are always there when you're onboarding your clients, they get really attached to you. You don't want that attachment. You want to detach yourself from the actual delivery, because that's going to serve you in the long term when you're actually scaling your company. So how do you do that? Is you introduce, let's say, a person inside of your team that will be taking care of the actual onboarding, and you say, hey, this is Nick. Nick is going to take care of the actual onboarding. He's going to be the main person you're going to be speaking to. He's going to be your account manager, okay? This helps you to remove yourself and observe the company from far distance, and also analyze things that need to be improved, tweaked, and attached in order for the business to perform much better as well, okay? Most service businesses grow with custom delivery. Every client gets slightly different work, and that works early but becomes really dangerous when you try to scale that, because the system becomes really fragile, because now every client's being fulfilled differently, and also it confuses your team because every time your team needs to go to you for an actual approval, okay? So a couple examples. Let's say client A needs 6 hours per week. Client B needs 12 hours, and client C suddenly requests a revision. Without the structure, the team constantly is reacting. And that starts to create a lot of stress, not only on your team, but on you, because now they're coming with the questions, validation, and they're coming to get some certainty from you, okay? So delivery framework. A simple delivery structure might look like onboarding, strategy, implementation, optimization, reporting. So what do we have here is not just like onboarding, strategy, implementation, optimization, reporting. It's we have a roadmap of how exactly we deliver, okay? That roadmap should be sticked where everybody can see, it should be visible, and that's the way we stick. And then what you can do is, let's say we have onboarding, you can have a couple steps for onboarding. How do we actually onboard clients? Maybe there's a certain date when you onboard them, maybe there's a group onboarding, maybe you have an email sent out, which is onboarding email with a Loom video attached, right? there's a certain steps that are included on the onboarding, right? So make sure that those steps are also outlined. Strategy. How do we make sure that we come up with the right strategy for that client, right? How do we make sure that the right strategy suits that client specifically? Also, maybe a couple bullet points there as well to make sure that we are hitting home runs. Implementation, how we're going to implement, right? First steps, second steps, third steps, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, right? All of that should be recorded. Optimization, also, how do we optimize? What do we look like? What metric are we looking for? What metric are we tweaking? What metric are we avoiding, right? All that should be also included there, because that will help the team to better understand what are we looking for? What are we scanning for? What are we kind of trying to see? Reporting, right? How do we report? Do we schedule a call because maybe that call is needed? Or maybe we don't need to schedule a call. Maybe we send them a report of like a Loom video. And hey, boom, there you go. You get a full Loom explaining everything that's happening, the onboarding strategy, implementation, optimization. Everything has been recorded and has been sent to the client. Now client has a full spectrum of understanding everything what's going on, right? Maybe the call is needed. Maybe there's so much detail. Maybe there's some tweaks that need to be happen. Maybe the call is needed. But then if a call is needed, how long the call should happen? Is it going to be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes? What happens if suddenly it's more and we understand, hey, on the call, it's going to take more? Or maybe we're on a call and we are kind of getting sidetracked from our conversation. So we need to have boundaries. We need to set everything. So all of this has to be documented. This will help your team to have 100% clarity when they're actually operating, right? So each stage has defined tasks, ownership, and actual timelines as well. Super important. Who's going to be responsible for the task? Who's going to be responsible for sending the onboarding? Who's going to be responsible for actually coming up with the strategy, right? Who's going to take the ownership? Who's going to take the timelines? What are the deadlines, right? We all need to work it out. And then when it's worked out, it's really easy for your team to actually stay on track as well, okay? Now the team doesn't invent delivery every time. They follow an actual process that has been documented from the actual beginning. So system 3 is business visibility, which is really important if you are scaling, because this gives you really a better understanding of what's happening inside of your business. So a good example to give you is like you go to the doctor, you maybe say, hey, you know, like I'm kind of feeling pain in my shoulder. And your doctor says, you know what, we need to do an x-ray. Now he x-rays your entire skeleton. He says, you know what, this is this, like we need to do this. Nothing is broken. I think it's this. He has a better understanding, right? And the same diagnosis has to happen inside of your business. So that x-ray machine is the business visibility that you can actually see to see what's working, what's not working, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be improved. You see, many founders between 20 and 40K operate without clear numbers. They know revenue, and that's the only thing they know, okay? But they don't track pipeline value, like how much value we currently have in a pipeline. Maybe the pipeline is sitting on 3.5 million and we don't even know it. And we don't even know that, hey, we need to do follow-ups. We just had a great conversation with these people. Everybody wants to go ahead. We never followed up. And now nobody knows. And now we're just putting more leads, but we never follow up. And once that follow comes in, suddenly our pipeline value estimated at 3.4 million is now we can getting more deals. We are increasing revenue just because of that one follow-up system brought in, right? So we need to know the pipeline value, close rate, like, so we're having a lot of leads, but we're not having that revenue generated, that cash flow collected, right? What's the problem? Close rate. Because the pipeline value also tells what's the close rate. With those two numbers, we can start really looking at, okay, like let's forecast, right? Client profitability, like how are we really profitable on each client? Like how much profit we make on each client. Maybe the client is like paying us 10K, but like we are spending 7K to fulfill them. And that's not profitable at all, right? And then also taking the ads, maybe have team costs and everything. So all these numbers have to be really calculated in order for you to understand how profitable is your business. Next one, delivery capacity. Also really important, right? Without visibility, decisions really become emotional, and emotional decisions usually drive you in actual stress, uncertainty, unpredictability, and the business starts to the revenue starts to swing. You don't know what's happening. You kind of try to adjust things, but you don't know what to adjust because you don't know what's working and what is working. So with the visibility, decisions become logical. And you're more calmer as well because you can see things not working there and you know why they're not working and you know how to adjust, you know what needs to be exactly done. So to give you kind of example of operator dashboard, okay, these systems have to be installed. I want to give you everything. So operator dashboard, every week the founder should know, number one, leads generated, sales conversations booked, deals closed, pipeline value, team capacity, and profit margin. This is what allows the founder to control growth instead of reacting to actual growth, okay? So Really important numbers are here that you know how many leads you generate inside of the business. That gives the overall number of how much opportunities are being generated in the business. Sales conversations booked is like how much we actually have an opportunity of closing. And then deals closed shows like how many opportunities from what we could be closing we actually closed, right? And then the pipeline value, it's like overall how much value we actually have in the pipeline, right? And then how can we extract the maximum juice out of the actual pipeline, right? Team capacity, profit margin, all these numbers have to be tracked. Maybe they're not really attractive to you. They're not sexy when you look at the numbers because you want to hear revenue. You want to hear, hey, we're making 2 million in revenue. We're making 3 million in revenue. We're making 5.5 million in revenue. But that's just for average Joe business owner who just wants to hear like the revenue. More importantly, profit margins. More importantly, leads generated that creates that profit margin. More importantly, close deals. How can we change? How can we tighten the pipeline? What we can do? All this is really important, right? Understanding the numbers behind the 60K is also important. Let's walk through a simple example. Let's say your revenue target is 60K, average client value is 5K, clients required would be 12 clients, right? Now calculate delivery capacity. If each client requires 8 hours per week, that's 12 by 8, 96 hours to fulfill all of your actual clients, right? Now add internal time, team meetings, revisions, communication. You quickly reach 110 to 120 hours of delivery just to deliver 12 clients, okay? This is why capacity planning matters before actual growth. This gives you a better understanding like, okay, can we take more clients? Or maybe we're actually getting stretched by adding 2 more clients because we only have X amount of hours. That also gives you a better understanding, hey, if I hire a person, that gives me more hours in the day. That gives me 8 hours, right? Gives me 8 hours per person. We could diversify them, that one person into 2 actual portfolios. That means I have currently 4 hours on each client, right? So all these numbers matter. Because then you also know what needs to happen inside your business. Maybe you can move a couple projects. Maybe you can actually take off the delivery hours and maybe put more templates, more systems that suddenly like you don't need 8 hours per client. Now you only need 3 hours per client or 4 hours per client, right? So all of that has to be really analyzed, diagnosed, and looked upon because that really was currently driving the growth inside of your business, okay? So next one, I want to give you kind of a good example that I worked with a client before, right? Had a consulting business doing anywhere between 32K per month. Their instinct was to push harder on the actual marketing. That's how he thought that he could actually get to 100K because his goal was, hey, I want to really make 100K a month, right? So we kind of looked at the numbers. We wanted to really go deeper and understand like what does it really take to actually get you to 100K a month, right? So he said no, but at first I actually was thinking that I need to do the marketing, I need to do more ads, and I need to do more sales. That's going to get me to 100K. It made sense, and it probably would make sense for everybody. But then actually before we joined and we partnered, we had a look at what's happening in the business. And I found immediately 3 main issues when I actually look at the business. And that's probably, I would say, 80% of examples for every single agency owner or service business out there, right? Number 1, pipeline was not being tracked. That was the biggest thing. Like he didn't know how much opportunities are sitting in the pipeline. He didn't know what's happening with the pipeline. And I can honestly tell you, I looked at the pipeline, there was a lot of value in the pipeline. And I said, hey, how do you extract the juice from the pipeline? He was like, thinking about it. He's like, I don't know, we kind of maybe emailed them. I said, are you asking me a question are you emailing or are you asking me what you should do? I was like, I'm asking you what you should do. And I was like, hey, no. Like I'm asking you, what are you doing to extract the juice from the actual pipeline? Because you have a lot sitting in the pipeline. He was like, no, we're not doing anything. And I was like, well, first of all, you can easily reach 60K if you would just have a couple things installed inside of your pipeline. I said like your follow-ups, your emails, your things that like bring them to the calendar, converts them, educates them. You have none of this. That's a big reason you could be leaking money as well, right? Number 2, delivery time varied widely per client. Like I would ask, hey, how much it took you to the last client you signed on? How long it actually took you to fulfill? He was like, hey, no, like that client, maybe about 4 to 7 hours. I said, what varies? It's like there's a couple things that vary. Like, for example, they would have a different situation, right? Maybe their business is not working or maybe their career is not working or in the business itself, and it's not working how he actually wants to work the business and scale the business and grow the business. So it really varies, right? He said. And said, okay, so how long did it actually take you to fulfill a client that was onboarded 2 months ago or 3 months ago? He said, well, that client specifically, like also 4 to 7. I said, do you have any clients that vary differently? He was like, yeah, I have clients that I did 3 hours, 4 hours. And I said, how is that client different from the client that's taking 4 to 7 hours? It's like, sometimes it's just a different situation. But as we get more into detail, I understood this. Most of it was kind of made up as we go, right? There's no templates. There was no like process. There was no finalization of what exactly needs to be installed. There was no standardization. There was no documentation. And so it's like, hey, your delivery time really is currently also suffering because you don't have templates. Okay. Third one, the founder reviewed every deliverable, right? He wanted to make sure that everything is perfect. And so instead of designing an actual checklist and then his team could look at the checklist and be like, hey, check, all done. Yeah, we can send it off. He was sent every single work, and then he had to check. And that took so much time from him. And that time could be actually used to scale his company, but it wasn't, right? So instead of pushing for more clients, we immediately installed a pipeline tracking system, standardized delivery stages, and team ownership for specific tasks, right? Within just 4 months, right? Because he easily got past 6K, right? It was like nothing changed. We just installed tracking, standardized delivery stages, and team ownership, and that's about it. We didn't even play with demand. We didn't install any ads. We didn't go any cold outreach, none of that. We didn't even go with a VSL funnel, none of that. We just pipeline tracking system, standardized delivery stages, team ownership. That's it, 60K. And he was actually sitting in one of the months, he was started to hit 70K per month, right? Now he's asking a question, how can we get to 150? Because he's really near 100K now, right now. So he's like, hey, how do we get 150? Now ads are probably good thing to actually start to run ads at this stage. But like, there's a couple of things you can currently do inside of your business. If you look at your pipeline, maybe you say, hey, I don't have follow-ups. Maybe we should be better on follow-ups. I have no shows. Right? Maybe there's need to be follow up in there. Maybe after the call, I should like kind of convert them. Maybe we're not following up so frequently with them to make a deal, right? There's a lot of things could happen. So, but the bigger change was operational. The founder finally felt in control of the actual business. And that's the change that has to happen inside of your business if you actually scale and grow your business, right? So the real shift founders must make. Early stages, when you are at the early stage, let's say 0 to 10, you can just hustle, grind, and do it, right? But later stages, once you get past 20K, like you need to start thinking of how do I design my business where it doesn't require me so much my inputs into reviews, questions, and things, so I can use that time to actually grow my business, right? So 10K, at 10K, like I said, working harder is good. You can probably pull it off. 30K, working harder increases actually stress, because now you're kind of like running and you're trying to be stretched in too many directions. At 60K, like your structures, systems, and designs are mandatory, okay? This is where founders must stop thinking like freelancers and start thinking like actual operators inside of their business as well, okay? So what founders should focus on next? Before pushing to 60K months, focus on building predictable lead flow, repeatable delivery process, weekly operational visibility, okay? This should give you a better understanding and a better visibility of what's happening inside of your actual business, right? It will give you predictable lead flow, will tell you what is pipeline value, how well we actually optimize the opportunities we have, how much we actually can squeeze the juice off the pipeline. Repeatable delivery process will make sure that you're not actually stressed. You're not too much stretched as well, okay? Weekly operational visibility will give you what's happening every single week. How can we adjust and how can we make sure that the ship is being steered in the right direction, okay? When these three systems exist, growth becomes really calm, and it helps you also to better navigate the business. Because when you are in stress, you don't know which direction you should go because business is pulling you many directions, right? Without these systems, growth will become exhausting, stressed, you always will be stretched, okay? So most founders believe that the goal is simply more revenue, but the goal is not more revenue, it's actually how can you control your business? Because once you control your business, you can also control the growth. Because when systems exist, the business becomes stronger with each new client being added. And that allows companies to move beyond 60K months and eventually towards 100K months and beyond that as well, okay? So my final note for you is this. Think about what systems need to exist, where you are more weaknesses inside of the business, how can you actually cover the weaknesses up, how can you have a predictable lead flow, repeatable delivery process, and weekly operational visibility, okay? If you really enjoyed this video, this really gave you a good perspective of the business, what needs to exist, add a lot of value, smash the like button, comment down below if you need any additional help or you maybe are interested in me talking specifically on a different subject. If it does fit with our actual content theme, because I couldn't have a team that actually produces content and what I need to make in order for us to speak to exactly our target audience, then I will more likely to create that content piece for you as well, okay? So comment down below. Make sure you also subscribe so you don't ever miss a content that could change the direction of your business and help you to actually scale as well.